I was born in Massachusetts, not far from here in the central part of Massachusetts, next to Old Sturbridge Village, a little town called Charlton. And I went in the hospital when I was 5. And when I came out of the hospital, I knew I was going to have a hard time today. Most of my family was gone. Our store was gone, our home was gone. We got wiped out in a flood. And luckily my mother had taken my siblings out. But I lost my dad and my grandparents and my uncle, and we didn't have a home anymore, or we had a grocery store, it was gone. And we were behind a dam that broke. And you know, it was 55. And, you know, I think stuff like that, I've come to realize I've been able to get myself away from crack cocaine for about 9 years now. And I had a very hard struggle with that for about 25 years of my life. And a lot of these things she ticked off, I was, you know, an irregular but constant user, and I would mess up my life and never finish anything, as the big book said. You know, when your family gets, I don't know how my mother did it. You know, we ended up moving to Florida. My grandfather had built a home in Florida on St. Pete Beach, and she took us away from all my dad's relatives and everybody and just wanted to escape. And I don't know how my mother didn't become an alcoholic and didn't become a drug addict. And I don't know how she did that. She's still alive, God bless her, at 94. And she had lost everything she ever knew in her life. I mean, she grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, like you know up here. You know, 2,000 people, 3,000 people. They were the grocery store for the town. But you know, 15 minutes after she walked out of her house, you know, every piece of silverware, every picture, you know, they found her mom 8 miles away 2 weeks later because her diamond ring caught the sunlight in the mud. Yeah, I think, you know, I've come to believe in the last 9 years from being heavily involved in going to meetings and everything that people get damaged a lot when they're children. You know, I call it abandonment issues. I don't think it matters whether it's orphanage or molestation and I think that it does something that allows you know, I've come to believe in recovery because my recovery is all about spiritual recovery. My recovery is all about exactly the way Bill W. wrote about it and his group, about what I have to do to stay sober every day. Is that I have to have a relationship with God, and that I work very, very hard to have that relationship. The big book says that I can stay sober, subject to the maintenance of on a daily basis, subject to the maintenance of my spiritual condition. You know, I had been a master of the universe. I was 32 years old, and I was a master of the universe. Just ask me, I would have told you. And I went to a meeting with a couple of lawyers in Boston on the top floor of one of the conference rooms in 60 State Street, and it was 1982, and they laid out some white powder I'd never seen before, and I grew up in the drug generation. I never became addicted to anything, and I snorted this stuff, and I think it was the first time in my life I must have ever felt good because I was instantly addicted to cocaine. And it ruined my life. Within a number of months after that happening, I got involved with I was all of a sudden now hanging around with all the wrong people. Before that happened, you know, I was, you know, very close to senators and governors and lieutenant governors, treasurers of campaigns on statewide basis. I was in the White House at 26. I had coached basketball at Duke by the time I was 23. I mean, I had all these different things that I had done that people would work a lifetime for, and I never appreciated them because part of having the damage that occurs to people that go through these abandonment issues is you live a life in low self-esteem, and you cover it up with a false ego. and it makes it very hard to relate to people, and people can't relate to you. One of the characteristics, you tend to have friendships with the opposite sex. Well, you're supposed to have friends with members of the same sex, but people that are in the program of recovery, before they recovered, they traditionally always had relationships with members of the opposite sex. They couldn't get along with members of their own sex. And this is this spiritual disease that the big book talks about. And it is that. And I recognized in getting sober that, I know it's Luke 11:17. It's also in Matthew. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And essentially, when you get sober, you cast the demon out, as Luke 11:17 says, and that demon is searching for food and drink. Finding none, it comes back to inhabit its old haunts. Finding them swept and clean, it brings back 7 demons stronger than itself. So if you believe, like I have come to believe through this program of recovery, that we're the battlefield, those of us that are damaged goods are the battlefield, because the devil did not want to lose me. So he wants to send 7 demons stronger than the last one to come get me. So I have to be very vigilant. But the beauty of it, and I'll use this event as just one example, is that I have become so vigilant that I've learned how to, and it's not a fake word. I've learned how to practice faith. Now, I was really good at practicing basketball. I was really good at practicing the piano and practicing drums. I never thought about practicing faith. It's just like anything else. You've got to get better at it. When you get better at it, you get rewards of what that means. The big book tells me in step 11 that I will learn to have a sixth sense that will guide me if I can stay in the present. So now imagine this. I was a master of the universe. At one time I was worth, on paper, $11 or $12 million. And in 2007, January 2007, I was homeless, penniless, foodless, clothesless, everythingless. And some guy came over and picked me up in the middle of the night. He was a shore patrol guy at the Mayport Naval Base, and I guess he must have had a room for rent advertised, and I knew I had to get out of this place where I was, and I just had to get out, and this angel picked me up in the middle of the night. And the next day, I had nothing to do. I only had the clothes on my back. That's all I had. And I had nothing else. I was, what the word is, or the 2 words are, it's called incomprehensibly demoralized. And you will be, the people that you know that are drug addicts or whatever are incomprehensibly demoralized. So I was sitting on a bus stop bench, and some young lady was there, and she looked at me and she said, "I'm going to a meeting. You need to go to one, I think." And she gave me bus fare, and I went with her to the meeting, and I sort of never left for about 7 or 9 months. I really, really didn't leave. I was afraid to leave. And about the 3rd day I was there, somebody spoke at a Saturday night meeting, and something came over me, and I had what they call a spiritual experience. And for the first time since I could remember, I didn't feel alone anymore. And I began to read the big book, and very quickly I realized there was a certain 5-word sentence in the big book of AA, and it was the only choice in the entire first 164 pages of the big book. And it said, God either is or isn't. Well, I had done the isn't. How did that work out for me? It got me from 1982 or 83 of being arrested for, as I told you, I started hanging around with the wrong people, and I ended up in some kind of reverse drug sting. I mean, I wasn't even in the state when it occurred, but I had been around these people, and I'd gotten a few ounces of pot, and I was the guy that made the news, and I was such a master of the universe that when they finally came and got me 3 days later, they did a joke about me on Saturday Night Live. Now tell me when you're really, really depressed, that your whole life you saw just go down the toilet, and you're at home really, really depressed, and you're watching Saturday Night Live to pick you up, and they're doing a joke about you. And you know, I've been arrested, then I got arrested for cocaine, trying to buy crack, and for, you know, parking ticket. In San Francisco, actually, it's easier to get a ticket for solicitation than to get a speeding ticket in Florida. So that's San Francisco, I guess. So I got a parking ticket or something in San Francisco for solicitation. So, you know, I've gone through all the terrible things that drug addicts go through, that behavior that we have. So here I am, trying to get sober, totally lost and out of it, and I can tell you this: God gave me an immense amount of talent, and I misused it and misused it and misused it, and all of a sudden you're standing with nothing, and you've lost everything, and you're nowhere, and you know that if you start thinking about everything that you did, you'd want to kill yourself. And if you started thinking about how bleak your future looked, because there was absolutely no way anybody would even let me work anymore or anything, you'd want to kill yourself. So I realized that I read a book called The Present, and the gift of the present. And you know, Jesus commands us to stay in the present. And I learned that if I prayed all day long, if I prayed unceasingly, as Thessalonians says for me to do, I didn't think about stuff, because I couldn't pray and think at the same time, and I couldn't pray and have fear at the same time, and I couldn't pray and regret my life at the same time. And I just started to do this stuff where when I stayed in the present, I started to actually get intuition. I get on the right bus at the right time. I stopped being willful. I just allowed my life to go wherever it took me. And because I went so deep into the woods, it took a long time for me to come out of them, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity. And I did finally get hired by a real estate agent, a very big firm that used to represent me, and now I'm working for them. But I was blessed to get it, and I've been able to, it took a long time. Like, I had an angel that took care of me for a number of years and tried to help me get back on my feet. But God didn't want me to get back on my feet until he knew I was humbled enough. And I wasn't easy to humble. He had already learned that, because it took 25 years of humbling before I had to go all the way to the bottom and have nothing, and then be so humbled that, you know, I had nowhere to go but to find him. And I'm so blessed that I did. I've had, you know, putting this conference together turned out to be a miracle that Jessica showed up. And the pastors would tell you, this whole thing fell apart on Saturday, and I wrote them a note saying, don't worry, God's got it taken care of. It'll, you know, so I'm writing the preachers, nah, it's okay, God will fix it. And I go to church Sunday, and I say, okay, God, what do you want us to do? And I had a call with both pastors at 10:30 Monday morning, and 15 minutes for that call, Jessica calls me and says, you know, we'd love to put on this event. So that was just a blessing. When I was getting sober, I had no money or anything, and as long as I kept doing the right thing, people in my AA club would come and give me $5, give me $3. For whatever reason, the Salvation Army major at the ARC, the Adult Rehab Center, used to allow me to come into his place and have dinner and lunch. I used to, you know, which was miles away from where I live, but I would ride the bus or my bicycle or something. And by the way, 3 months sober, the most important day of my life, of my entire life, was somebody let me use a bicycle. That's how I learned to be blessed. That was the most happiest moment of my life. 3 months of walking, and somebody let me borrow their bicycle, and oh my God, I thought I was off to the races. That's how much I had to fall in order to rise again. So about 18 months ago, and I don't know if Senator Cruz is ready to come in or not. I haven't been texted that yet. All right. But all right, then I'll quickly move ahead. About 18 months ago, I was very blessed. I started praying about how can I not leave my daughters this country that I don't recognize. And, you know, I said, God, if you could just allow me to use the talent you gave me that I have destroyed over and over again, that I didn't use properly, that I didn't use to your benefit, that I didn't, let me have one shot. Let me help my kids so I can look them in the eye and say, I tried. And somewhere in March, I turned on the TV and Senator Ted Cruz was on TV announcing for the President of the United States. And I picked up the phone and I called a guy that I knew was an acquaintance, the guy named Rick Tyler, who you probably see on TV. And I knew Rick to be a godly man and a humble man. And I knew that if I called Rick, he'd tell me what I should do. And he said, Paul, I'm already here. But there's a fundraiser tomorrow. I got on a plane. I bought Rick a ticket. We went and I met Senator Cruz. I met his wife. I met all the people around him. And they have let me help. They have let me in to help them. They have welcomed me despite all the things in my past. And I'm so grateful, Senator Ted Cruz.